Hello, welcome back. So in this video, we are going to go over Gretchen Voss's latest article slash story about the Karen Reed goings on. And she has apparently decided to die on the hill of the should have been suspects slash House defendants slash ham, um, whatever you want to call them. And I say to you that that may be a regrettable decision on her part. Stick around and find out why. Okay, let's get right into it. It is a very long article. I apologize for it. It's well written, I must say, but I think she's willing to die on a hill that she isn't really aware there's a problem. I think that she chose to believe the Alberts and McCabe's and whoever rather than vet what they were saying and ask for receipts, because there are numerous statements that she puts as fact that are false and can be proven. And I say to you that there are people out there that are going to insist on her retracting some of these statements, her correcting them, possibly making a public apology, and she still may suffer consequences because of her lax reporting and her inability to stay neutral and impartial, and her willingness to just believe whatever is fed to her by the House defendants. And that is not what a journalist should do. That is the quickest way to lose any credibility. And I'll let you guys decide for yourself what you think. So let's get right into it. Just 1 second. Sorry. Okay, let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Okay, let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger for my blind ass. Is it showing for you guys? Okay. Let's get right into it. Inside the campaign that acquitted Karen Reed. Keyword acquitted. It was literally proven by scientists and medical examiners and doctors alike that John O'Keefe was not hit by a car and a car did not hit John O'Keefe. Simple as that. Now, can you say, as the House defendants, that you have any proof that you didn't do it? Because she has been proven innocent or not guilty for this crime. Can you say the same? I don't think so. For 3 years, the witnesses in the Karen Reed murder trial were harassed at their jobs, their homes, their children's sports games. It wasn't random. It wasn't a movement of true believers. Tell them that. It was a coordinated campaign against them, and now they're fighting back. Says you. Jennifer McCabe spotted him coming across the bleachers at her daughter's lacrosse game. Aiden Carney, the blogger who goes by the name of Turtle Boy, arrived in a mask and then pulled it off. He wasn't hiding. He shoved his phone, the video rolling, into her face. Hey, Jen, are you worried about what's going to happen to your family when you go to jail? She looked straight ahead from under her baseball cap, trying to ignore him. She was laughing. Let's say what really happened, okay? She was laughing. She thought it was funny. She looked straight ahead from under her baseball cap, trying to ignore him, trying to disappear as other parents gawked. Nobody was even paying attention. Jen, did you think you could outsmart Karen Reed? Yes or no? School officials eventually moved in and escorted Carney from the stadium in Billerica, but he didn't go quietly. Cop killers, that's what they are. They're cop killers, he hollered as they walked him out. Freedom of speech. Can I just say that? The cop he was referring to was John O'Keefe, a Boston police officer found dead in the snow in Canton on the morning of January 29th, 2022. He had last been seen alive earlier that night after drinking at 2 local bars when he got into Karen Reed's Lexus SUV with her during a nor'easter. And that's John O'Keefe. After Reed was indicted for manslaughter and then second-degree murder in 2022, she maintained her innocence, claiming that the people inside Brian Albert, his nephew Colin, and O'Keefe's close friend McCabe were the ones responsible for his death. She argued that they were able to cover it up thanks to a conspiracy involving dozens of people, including officials from the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office, the Massachusetts State Police, Canton Police, first responders, and expert witnesses, which were all proven to be connected in one way or another. So it's not that long of a reach. Carney was the first to report this alternative theory, raising questions about what had, until then, been seen as an open and shut case, at least on the manslaughter charge. So she's admitting right there that the murder 2 charge wasn't a open and shut case and probably shouldn't have been even charged. Carney's coverage. He has published more than 550 blog posts in his Canton cover-up series, along with thousands of tweets and hundreds of live streams, spawned a Free Karen Reed movement that spread across Massachusetts and beyond. Fueled by a quasi-religious fervor, the movement cast the witnesses as villains and public enemies, accusing them of framing an innocent woman to evade justice. None of the witnesses was ever charged with a crime. Not yet. But the rage unleashed against them irrevocably altered their lives. Ever since that first post, and even today, McCabe says she receives frequent phone calls, voices on the line calling her, quote unquote, evil bitch and worse, and Facebook messages accusing her of being a murderer. People drive by her house, take pictures, and send them to her to let her know they are watching. One time, someone edited a photograph of McCabe's daughter and added the caption, property of Turtle Boy, as well as digitally generated semen on her face and leg, and sent it to her. McCabe's, we'll see, and in court, she said it was semen. She didn't say it was digitally produced semen or digitally generated semen. She said it was actual semen on the stand. So another lie. McCabe's email and bank accounts have been hacked. That is not on Aiden Carney. It's just not. People will do what people do. It has nothing to do with Aiden Carney. Just because they may happen to be part of the Karen Reed movement doesn't mean that that was done on behalf of Aiden Carney or Karen Reed. People wore t-shirts and hoodies with her picture, which at one point were the hottest selling items in Turtle Boy's website merch store. Similar harassment also played out for the other witnesses. What few people know, though, is that the harassment of the witnesses and anyone who dared to question Reed's defense, including this reporter who has covered the case since its early days, was in fact orchestrated by Reed herself and, at times, coordinated with her defense team. According to now public text exchanges between Reed and Carney, often through an intermediary, Reed dictated to Carney exactly what he should write and how her attorneys leaked confidential information to him, and together they orchestrated the harassment of the witnesses. All the while, Reed's camp publicly denied any contact with Carney. Even the line, "Did you think you could outsmart Karen Reed?" that Carney spat at McCabe as she shrank into herself at the lacrosse game had been dictated by Reed. She didn't shrink into herself. Well, I mean, talk about exaggerating. Equally troubling, it seems that Reed's legal team brought their case to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Massachusetts. A federal inquiry into the handling of the police investigation into O'Keefe's death followed. This federal investigation, which departed from standard investigative practices in ways that legal experts have questioned, resulted in Reed's defense team gaining access to evidence they may not have otherwise obtained, including lead state police investigator Michael Proctor's personal text messages. Okay, well, the fact that you're saying that this is evidence that they might not have otherwise obtained is very troubling to me, because they are supposed to receive all the evidence. That's what discovery's for. So the fact that you're saying that they wouldn't have otherwise obtained this evidence is very troubling to me, and is the core purpose of them calling the Norfolk County DAs, the MPD, and the Canton PD corrupt. And you're talking about it like it's okay, which goes to show how fucking ignorant you are. The federal investigation ultimately went nowhere, but its mere existence lent legitimacy to Carney's accusations, gave much of the public the impression that the witnesses might be perpetrators of the crime, and quite possibly affected the outcome of the trial itself. No, the thing that affected the trial itself was the fact that John O'Keefe wasn't hit by a car and a car did not hit John O'Keefe. And that was proven by multiple people, multiple expert witnesses under oath testified that John O'Keefe was not hit by a car and a car did not hit John O'Keefe. So there's only one other option of how he died, and that's by the people inside that house. Who? I don't know. But he was killed by somebody in that house. That's the only other option there is. Meanwhile, instead of protecting witnesses to a crime, the feds left them hanging out to dry as the harassment, fueled by public knowledge of the federal investigation itself, continued to upend their lives. No. It wasn't the federal investigation that caused people to harass them. It was the fact that Turtle Boy, aka Aiden Carney, was bringing facts to the table and making people question the legitimacy of this case against Karen. And they didn't like being doubted or questioned. They didn't like their authority being second guessed, because they've never been challenged before. They've always just gotten away with it. Now, a little over a year after Reed was acquitted of killing O'Keefe, there's the key word, acquitted, the witnesses who continue to suffer harassment are taking matters into their own hands. They have secured legal representation from famed Sandy Hook lawyer Chris Mattei, who took down Alex Jones and won the largest defamation verdict in U.S. history, and are suing Karen Reed and Carney for defamation. I loved John, and I loved his niece, Kaylee, who called me at 4:53 that morning, McCabe says today. All I did was answer a call and try to help, and for that, my life has been destroyed. It was 2:07 a.m. on April 18th, 2023, when Carney sent a message from his home in Holden. He had been typing feverishly, working on his initial blog post about the murder of John O'Keefe. Now he attached it to a message for an intermediary between him and Reed. Read it over. Change exonerating to exonerate at end of first paragraph. Reed responded through the intermediary at 2:09 a.m., according to an extraction of Carney's cell phone, which was obtained by prosecutors as a result of witness intimidation charges against Carney and later became public via Carney's now former girlfriend. He has a niece and a nephew. Thank you, replied Carney. Keep them coming and I'll live edit. At 2:14 a.m., Reed sent another note through the intermediary, and that's Natalie the German, remember? Carrie Roberts repeated the same story as Jen. She kept sending edits until 3:06 a.m. when she was satisfied. Amaze ball sauce, she wrote, according to the phone extraction. Thank you so much. Hope they like it, Carney wrote through the intermediary, a former college acquaintance of Reed's named Natalie Wywicki. They love it. Incredible, Wywicki replied. The week prior, Wywicki had been introduced to Carney over Facebook by one of his followers. The two began texting, and after getting Reed's approval, Wywicki started receiving information from Reed and passing it to Carney, according to Wywicki and messages from Carney's phone extraction. There was other information Reed wanted to make sure Carney had. She started sending the pictures of Jen McCabe, Colin's battered knuckles, all the different Alberts, and just who's who. Wywicki, who now regrets her support of Reed, told me that included a photo from Carney published, supposedly showing state police lead investigator Michael Proctor with McCabe's daughters. In fact, they were not McCabe's daughters. Carney was an unlikely person to take on this role. Less than 2 weeks after O'Keefe's death the prior year, he addressed the case on a YouTube live stream. No doubt she killed him, because obviously the tail light was out, but who the fuck intentionally kills someone by backing into them? He told his fans. He speculated that Reed was drunk and had driven into her boyfriend by accident, which we all did, because the media falsely stated in their public releasing of any coverage on this that they had ring footage of the incident. The police told them, this MPD or the MSP told the mainstream media that they had ring camera footage showing Reed hitting John O'Keefe with her Lexus SUV. So everybody, including me, thought that it was a sad accident. She was drunk. She didn't mean to do it. Yada, yada, yada. Until we started really looking into it. You can't change your mind. I mean, look at all the antis that started out as pro Karen Reed. And they've changed to anti Karen Reed just because of their hate for Aiden Carney, which is absolutely ludicrous. That just shows that you have no moral ground, you know, if you can change your opinion about somebody that easily. That, however, was before Reed and her lawyers started giving him access to information about the case to report for them, which could make him a star, an award-winning journalist even. He was already an award-winning journalist. Thank you. Please tell TB he will get all the credit from my camp when this blows up. And when I talk to Dateline next, Reed wrote to Carney via Wywicki. Communicating through text and Signal, an encrypted messaging app, and eventually by phone, Reed would go on to use Carney to disseminate the alternative theory she hoped would upend the case against her and keep it from ever reaching trial. Reed did not respond to requests for comment. Fuck you, is probably what she's saying. Carney called himself an investigative reporter, but his first blog was based entirely on court documents from the defense, including a motion and 92-page affidavit filed 5 days earlier on April 12th. In it, Reed and her celebrity attorney from Los Angeles, Alan Jackson, man, he just really gets under everybody's skin, doesn't he? It really, really pisses them off that she was able to get him to come to Boston or come to Massachusetts to defend her. It just really, really chaps their hide. And I think it's hilarious. Argued that Brian Albert and his nephew Colin Albert were responsible for O'Keefe's death and that Jennifer McCabe helped cover it up along with investigators. From that first post and the hundreds more that would follow, putting the blame on the witnesses became a recurring feature of Carney's coverage as Reed continued to direct it. The morning the first blog hit, it jolted the tight-knit Canton community, rippling through group chats and youth sports sidelines. The witnesses' phones started blowing up, their DMs filling with questions and accusations. In the face of the online harassment, the witnesses rushed to shut down their social media accounts. Reed appeared pleased with the fallout. They're all folding, she texted Carney through Wiki. I would too. They deserve it. For Carney, the reaction was welcome. His page views, largely from readers who call themselves turtle writers, surged to a reported 80,000 a day that April, up from about 40,000, according to figures Carney previously provided to Boston. Many of those followers would form part of the Free Karen Reed movement, the FKR, acting as foot soldiers in a campaign against the witnesses that he directed after taking his own marching orders from Reed and her lawyers. A few days later, on April 22, Carney, using the Canton Police Department's incident report, which the defense had recently filed unredacted against court rules with the witnesses' personal information, called McCabe and Brian Albert while live streaming and accused them of covering up O'Keefe's murder. He claimed McCabe was sleeping with Albert, her sister's husband. Then he showed, wow, you're going to put that out there? Woo! Then he showed images of that unredacted report on the live stream. His thousands of viewers now had the witnesses' private phone numbers, addresses, and social security numbers. After Carney's stream, Reed's local attorney, David Unetti, King David, texted to congratulate him. That was priceless, dude. Great fucking show. Really enjoying the turtle reporting, he wrote, adding that Carney mispronounced his name, but I loved how you followed it up by, that proves that I'm not talking to them, according to Carney's phone extraction. The next day, Wiki sent Carney a message from Reed, who wanted him to write more about the secret federal probe. Quote, not public. The feds have been involved longer than anyone is likely guessing, end quote, Reed told him. A week later, Wiki relayed confidential federal grand jury information that Reed should not have known about. Quote, the first assistant U.S. attorney. They don't shoot and miss. They have a case and way more evidence than we do. I know this for a fact. Jen McCabe testifies this coming week. I'm not sure about the others. This is not going to trial for me. End quote. The following week, on May 3rd, at the first pretrial court appearance following Carney's inaugural blog, it appeared clear that the effort to send the alternative theory through Carney's coverage was working. For the first time, a crowd of protesters gathered outside the courthouse and a few dozen TV cameras and reporters were there to capture it all. Quote, they were clapping, end quote, Jackson told Boston in 2023. Quote, and then as we walked in, the door shut, they started applauding and we realized, okay, things have just shifted, end quote. He's making an observation, big freaking deal. Inside the courthouse, just one second. Okay. Sorry. Inside the courthouse, the next step in the campaign was about to unfold. 2 weeks earlier, on April 20th, just days after publishing his first post, Carney had spoken with Reed's defense team, who confirmed to him the federal investigation was underway, according to Carney's phone extraction and admissions Carney later made on his YouTube live stream, where he acknowledged that Reed's team had been his source. That same day, after the call, Carney posted a blog detailing the federal probe. In it, Carney wrote, according to reliable sources close to the matter, a federal grand jury has subpoenaed multiple witnesses who were in the home of Boston police officer Brian Albert on the night fellow BPD officer John O'Keefe was killed. The FBI has taken over the investigation and they have visited the homes of multiple witnesses. He confirmed with 100% certainty that Jennifer McCabe had received a subpoena, even though federal grand jury information is supposed to be strictly confidential. At the time, Carney publicly denied, including to me, while reporting any story in the subsequent months, that he had any contact with Reed or her team. On a later live stream, on a later live stream, he acknowledged that he had lied to me at Reed's request. So what? It's not illegal to lie to you. He didn't want you to know. But he wanted you to quit asking. On May 3rd, the defense team's leak came full circle. It's been reported that the federal authorities have now gotten involved in the circumstances surrounding this case and have impaneled a federal grand jury to investigate some of these circumstances, Jackson announced to the court. Then, raising his voice for dramatic effect, he added, Karen Reed should not have to wait for the feds to figure out which heads should roll. Jackson was able to speak about federal involvement in the grand jury in open court and have it entered into the public record because it had already been reported by Turtle Boy. That is not why he was able to announce it. It's not because Turtle Boy already leaked it. In a later court filing opposing a proposed gag order, Yannetti argued that Jackson had merely been reiterating what had already been publicly reported, not, he said, revealing anything about the grand jury being impaneled, something about which the defense team would have no knowledge. What Yannetti did not add is that it had been reported because his team had leaked it to Carney. Jackson and Yannetti did not respond to requests for comment. Well, because Jackson is currently working on her civil trial, so he can't comment. And Yannetti thinks that he's done with the bullshit, as you will soon find out, Gretchen. Speaking it to the press. Did you kill John O'Keefe? Colin Albert says. Adam Deitch, an assistant U.S. attorney, yelled at him. No, he replied, shocked. Tell us the truth. It was a suffocatingly hot day in late July 2023 when Colin was called to testify before the federal grand jury at the Moakley Courthouse, Colin recalls. 19 years old and recently finished with his freshman year at Bridgewater State, where he played football, he says he didn't understand why he was even there. Colin's lawyer was not allowed inside the small square room where rows of jurors faced him. Not one, as is customary, but two federal attorneys questioned him. The two of them were Adam Deitch, an assistant U.S. attorney who is now running for Norfolk County District Attorney, and Joshua Levy, the acting U.S. attorney for the District of Massachusetts, a role that doesn't typically question witnesses. Dustin Chow, another assistant U.S. attorney, was also present. Interesting. Behind Colin's shoulder, Carney's tweets and blogs were projected onto a screen, Colin says. Every single thing came from him. They didn't use anything else, nothing else, Colin tells me, noting that they didn't even bother to take Carney's name off the screenshots. So what? That just goes to prove how much what he was writing was in order to convince the judicial body to reconsider their investigation. That just proves his anti-SLAPP case that much more. Wow. Eventually, they accused me of every single thing Carney said. They also projected, Colin says, the same pictures Carney had published on his blog. Colin playing football, Colin at a wedding when he was a young boy, Colin's bloody knuckles. Those pictures, according to Carney's phone extraction, had originated with Reed, who had found them while trolling Facebook late at night and sent them to Carney through the intermediary to print online. You should have had your Facebook private then. Mine's always been private. According to Colin, the material federal prosecutors put before the grand jury had, in significant part, originated with Carney. What he didn't know at the time was that Carney had received it from Reed. Does it matter where he got it? I don't think so. She didn't break the law getting it. After hours of confrontational, combative questioning, Colin, those are big words for Colin, considering he didn't understand a lot of the words that Alan Jackson used in his cross-examination of Colin on the stand. These are some pretty big words. Colin asked for a break, went back into the small room where his lawyer waited, and broke down. When it was all over, he broke down again in his father's car. I couldn't stop shaking. I couldn't even speak, Colin says. I was like, what the fuck did they do to me in there? Oh, the poor baby. Norfolk County District Attorney Michael Morrissey has called the federal intervention in his office's murder case unprecedented. He is not the only one. According to a former AUSA who worked in the office's public corruption unit, it is rare for the federal government to open a parallel investigation into an active state homicide case, and rarer still for a murder defendant's attorneys to bring the case to them. How exactly Reed's defense team got the ear of the U.S. Attorney's Office before the federal investigation began remains unclear. What's clearer is a series of documented connections, some direct, some circumstantial, between people around Reed's case and people around the federal office that took it up. Yannetti had a prior professional relationship with Rachel Rollins, the U.S. Attorney for Massachusetts, in the fall of 2022 when the federal probe began. And Karen knew that. That's why she hired Yannetti. You think? I doubt it. He had been involved to Rollins' transition team when she took office in 2019. According to multiple sources, including Morrissey, Rollins deeply disliked Morrissey, whom she had publicly accused of being misogynistic. And look at Michael Proctor's misogynistic texts. Very fitting. In a letter he wrote to the DOJ's Office of Professional Responsibility after learning his witnesses were being subpoenaed to the federal grand jury, Morrissey formally raised what he called concerns about motive, conflict, or appearance of conflict, and potential bias of the Office of the United States Attorney for Massachusetts. Well, that's funny because Karen Reed's lawyers formally raised concerns about conflict or the appearance of conflict with Judge Cannone, with Proctor with Cannone about Proctor, they formally brought it to the judge's attention about multiple appearances of conflict, and nothing was done. So welcome to their world. Rules for thee, but not for me. Is that it? What? And the thing is they truly believe that. They truly believe that the rules are thee and not for me. They're not used to being challenged. And they didn't know what to do. They panicked. And it showed in a lot of what they did in response to it. And potential bias by the Office of the United States Attorney of Massachusetts. Kind of like the bias of the court against Karen and the bias of the Norfolk DA towards Karen. And I can go on and on. Morrissey wrote that Chow, the head of the U.S. Attorney's Public Corruption Unit, who was heading up the federal investigation, had asked a Massachusetts state police detective in 2018 if he, quote, had any kind of damaging information on the DA, first assistant, or the Norfolk DA's office, end quote. I confirmed this with the detective, who added that Chow had disparaged Morrissey in vulgar terms and told him, quote, I would do a case against that guy if you know anything about him, end quote. Good. So what? It's nothing different than what you guys did to Karen Reed. And that was okay, right? The animosity, Morrissey wrote in his letter, stemmed from his office attempting to demote Chow's wife, Laura, from her position at the NCDA's office years earlier. She resigned instead and filed an ethics complaint, which was dismissed. Morrissey also pointed to Rollins, who resigned in the wake of an investigation of the DOJ's Office of the Inspector General that found, among other ethical violations, that she tried to create the public impression that the DOJ was investigating a political opponent of hers. I believe that a reasonable person could conclude that the same type of tactics are being employed against the Norfolk DA's office in the Reed investigation, Morrissey wrote. You're very astute. You're astute. In an emailed response, Rollins says that the unsigned OIG report is an allegation, not a finding, and she disagrees with it. The former assistant U.S. attorney told me that Carney's blog was something federal prosecutors in the office would read. Most of the time, it was nothing, he said, but 10% of the time, there may be something there. Okay. What's wrong with that? They find him to be credible. What's wrong with that? The office had, in fact, brought a public corruption case that Carney's blog had covered aggressively. Monica Cannon Grant, a prominent activist whom Levy, Chow, and Deitch would indict and prosecute for, among other things, defending the city of Boston out of COVID relief funds. Defrauding the city of Boston out of COVID relief funds. Carney denies. Let me read that again. The office had, in fact, brought a public corruption case that Carney's blog had covered aggressively. Monica Cannon Grant, a prominent activist whom Levy, Chow, and for, among other things, defrauding the city of Boston of COVID relief funds, period. Parents. Carney denies having ever spoken to anyone in the U.S. Attorney's Office. Just 1 second. I need to blow my nose again. Okay. Sorry about that. Public corruption cases are notoriously hard to bring, the former assistant U.S. attorney told me, especially in blue Massachusetts, where there aren't two political parties investigating one another. Prosecutors are desperate for and rely on tips, he says, and take them from wherever they can, be it the Boston Globe, Spotlight Team, or Carney. That's a little dig at Gretchen, I think. Anonymous whistleblowers, even a murder defendant. For her part, Reed claimed in her communications with Carney and others to have a direct line to the U.S. Attorney's Office. None of this fully explains how Reed's defense team got their case before the U.S. Attorney's Office, but why the office took it up may be less mysterious. The former assistant U.S. attorney told me that the opportunity to potentially expose a major cover-up involving the state police, Canton PD, and the DA's office would have been, in his words, quote, right in the wheelhouse, end quote, of any U.S. attorney's office and career-defining for whoever led it. That was Levy, then the acting U.S. attorney after Rollins' forced resignation. Levy did not respond to requests for comment. However, it all went down in September 2022, according to a statement from Jackson in court, the feds subpoenaed the defense's entire case file. Morrissey says his office reached out to Levy multiple times, offering to share the state's evidence from their investigation. Levy turned it down. Wow, that says a lot. We don't want your shit. It's shit. Duh. Instead, Levy called the witnesses before a grand jury. When you have the leverage that the feds have, sometimes you want to put pressure on it. You drag people into the grand jury, that kind of stirs the pot, gets people talking, says the former assistant U.S. attorney, adding that if he had caught wind of an alleged vast conspiracy, he too would have pulled at a few strings to see where they led. Who wouldn't? If Morrissey thinks he wouldn't, he's full of shit. And it's just because of laziness or he doesn't know how. Where that led, Brian Albert believes, was to the witnesses being treated as suspects. Albert, who was a sergeant detective and commander of the Boston Police Department's fugitive unit, who helped catch the Craigslist killer and who earned honors for bravery and valor, was also called to testify before the federal grand jury. Quote, "It was very aggressive. I was not in there as a witness," end quote. He says, I was in there as the suspect. That was the first time that anybody of any importance was insinuating that. Just how dare they, right? I mean, do you know who I am, motherfuckers? Just as with his nephew Colin, Brian says the U.S. Attorney's Office appeared to take much of their information from Reed's defense team via Carney's blogs and social media posts. Brian says he was tag-teamed by 3 federal prosecutors, Levy, Deitch, and Chow. I do not rile easily, Brian says, and I was freaking distraught. His wife, Nicole, sister of Jennifer McCabe, and McCabe's daughter, Allie, were also reduced to tears by the hostile questioning during their own testimonies. I take great pleasure in knowing that. Sorry, that's my opinion. Big. That makes me very happy. While Reed was telling Carney that... I just have no pity for you. No empathy at all. And I'm a very empathetic person. I'm a very big empath. But none that I can spare for you. While Reed was telling Carney that she had a direct line to the feds, O'Keefe's family could not get a return phone call or email from the U.S. Attorney's Office. John's brother, Paul O'Keefe, reached out to Levy repeatedly and got nothing in response. Though the O'Keefe family and the prosecution could not get any answers, Reed continued to weaponize the feds' involvement for Carney to disseminate. In early May 2023, for instance, she texted through the intermediary, Josh Levy is the first assistant. There's only one first assistant, and he doesn't typically prosecute. Like, he never prosecutes. He just delegates to the assistants within the divisions. For example, Adam Deitch. But he's running this grand jury, and to substantiate the gravity of this particular federal probe, period. Levy is not a prosecuting attorney, but he's making an exception for this case. Meanwhile, the existence of the federal case only amplified the harassment of the witnesses and was used to legitimize it with disastrous effects. McCabe says she reached out to the U.S. Attorney's Office multiple times, telling them one of her daughters had begun self-harming and had spent 3 months in a partial mental health program. She got no response. Why the actual fuck, Gretchen Voss, would you put that in an article? How absolutely disgusting of a human being you are for putting that in this article. That is, wow. Wow. Why would you do that to somebody? That is so disgusting. What? And you're supposed to be on their side? And that's what you do? That's unbelievable that you would put that in this article. That is so telling of what type of person you are. Wow, just wow. This too is unusual, according to a retired FBI agent from the Massachusetts field office who worked on public corruption cases. We went after people that were bothering our witnesses all the time. The former agent says it's standard operating procedure, and they could have done the same to Carney and his followers. Well, maybe they didn't look at you guys as witnesses. You yourself said that they treated you as suspects. So maybe they didn't feel obligated to come to your rescue, so to speak. Maybe they had no desire to help you because in their eyes, you guys were suspects, not witnesses. Did you ever think about that? Because I'm willing to believe that that's why they weren't getting back to you. They don't usually mingle or commingle with their defendants. Just an observation. We'd go out and tell them, look, if you do it again, we're going to arrest you. Leave our witnesses alone. Protecting witnesses so they can come forward to testify is critically important to the integrity of the justice system. You're right, it is. But they weren't seen as witnesses in the Fed's eyes. It's just as simple as that. They wanted to be witnesses in the Fed's eyes, but they weren't. And I think that's what hurt them more than anything. Crushed their little feelings. They're just a baby. Meanwhile, the worst harassment was only beginning. On July 22nd, 2023, McCabe, her husband, and two of her 4 daughters huddled inside their Canton home as Carney stood outside, screaming into a bullhorn at a crowd of more than 100 followers. I want all Jen McCabe's neighbors to know, in case they don't already know, that the people who live right here are cop killers. These are cop killers. Well, you know what? The Norfolk County DA's office and the MSP and the Canton Police Department all knew that this rolling rally was going to take place when, at what time, what day, and where. They were so aware of it that they put cameras up throughout the city or throughout the town, whatever, to record it all. So why did they do that instead of stopping it to protect you, their witnesses? Why did they feel the need to just let it continue or even take place? Did you ever ask yourself that? Because they knew about it ahead of time because they put cameras up around the town. So they let it go on. They let it take place. If I were you, I'd be wondering why. Why would they put me through that? Over the course of 2 hours, Carney, driving a brand new Lexus, had led a caravan of cars on what he called a rolling rally. Dozens of cars made their way through the streets of Canton, stopping at the homes of 7 different witnesses to listen and cheer on Carney as he blared accusations while live streaming for the rest of his followers. And you know who else was present at that rolling rally? None other than Gretchen Voss, the author of this article. She was there. Does that bother anybody on the anti side? Carney's behavior at the rally had the backing of Reed's attorneys, who had also filed the police report in court with the witnesses' unredacted addresses. That evening, after the rally, Yannetti messaged Carney, "Thanks for your continued support," according to Carney's phone extraction. So what? It is not illegal. Let me repeat that again. It is not illegal for Karen Read or her attorneys to speak to the media. There was no gag order on the case. By this point, Yannetti and Carney were in regular communication, with Carney sending Yannetti tips and Yannetti sending court documents and confidential information on top of the many phone calls between them. For instance, after McCabe went to Stoughton District Court for a harassment prevention order against Carney, Yannetti texted Carney on May 30th with news: HPO denied. That night, Carney blogged about it, ending his post with a kicker: "The bad news for Jen is that we're just getting started. Buckle up, horseface." But can't you do something to make him stop blogging about me? Pathetic. By the beginning of May, Reed had dropped the intermediary, and she and Carney started communicating directly over Signal, and many other messages many other of their messages appear in Carney's phone extraction. They also communicated by phone 189 times, totaling more than 40 hours in 2023 alone, according to an affidavit filed the following year seeking a search warrant to seize Karen's phones. Oh my God. 40 hours of phone calls? What are we going to do? Who gives a shit? Wow. Just wow. Carney also recorded some of those calls, presumably without Reed's permission, an act that Massachusetts law defines as illegal wiretapping, and those recordings have also been leaked online. Funny how you threw that in there. All the while, the witnesses were being targeted relentlessly. The Free Karen readers followed and confronted them, showing up at Caitlin Albert's wedding in New Hampshire, posting pictures of the McCabes on vacation in Aruba, screaming at Brian Albert as he tried to eat lunch in a crowded mall food court. It got so bad that Colin Albert says he was forced to quit playing football and give up his lifelong dream of playing in college as a result of the harassment from Carney and his followers. He is now enrolled in the U.S. Army, which he told Judge Gildea, is that right? That his to be in the Army. His lifelong dream changes quite a bit, I guess, huh? But yeah, I remember that. I didn't know anybody went to Caitlin Albert's wedding. I don't think anybody did. I think somebody got copies of some of the pictures from her wedding reception off of somebody's Facebook or Instagram or something and posted them. But I don't think anybody actually went to the wedding. I could be wrong. But people, what they have to realize is that people are going to recognize them. And it's up to those people what they want to do with that. If they want to take your picture while you're out vacationing in Aruba, that's between you and that person. It has nothing to do with Aidan Carney or Karen Read. So, big fucking deal that happened. It's not their problem. Wow. So they're just going to get blamed for everything that happens to the McAlberts from here on out. Aidan Carney and Karen Read are going to get blamed for everything that may happen to the McAlberts. Is that what we're setting a precedent for? I mean, because that's what it seems like. This is Morrissey's hostage video. And if you haven't seen this, it is something to talk about because it is just cringe. In fact, it's being used to teach law students what not to do as a district attorney. Good going, Morrissey. So let's watch it, shall we?
This will be the first statement of its kind in my dozen years as Norfolk District Attorney. The harassment of witnesses in the murder prosecution of Karen Reed is absolutely baseless. It should be an outrage to any decent person, and it needs to stop. Innuendo is not evidence. False narratives are not evidence. However, what evidence does show is that John O'Keefe never entered the home at 34 Fairview Road in Canton the night he died. Location data from his phone, recovered from the lawn beneath his body when he was transported to the hospital, shows that this phone did not enter that home. 11 people have given statements that they did not see John O'Keefe enter the home at 34 Fairview that night. 0 people have said that they saw him enter the home. 0. No one. Some have, without any evidence, pointed to 18-year-old Colin Albert, a nephew of the homeowner, and accused him of attacking John O'Keefe as he entered the home. But phone evidence shows O'Keefe never entered the home at all. Testimony from witnesses tell us that 18-year-old Colin Albert had left his uncle's home before John O'Keefe and Karen Reed had arrived outside the residence.
And those same witnesses originally those same witnesses originally said that Colin Albert was never ever even there. So why should we believe what they say now? Hello? You tricked me once, shame on you. You tricked me twice, shame on me.
There was no fight inside that home. John O'Keefe did not enter the home. Colin Albert, the young man being vilified, was not present when Reed's vehicle and John O'Keefe arrived on the street. This is a false narrative. Colin Albert didn't commit murder. Jennifer McCabe, Matthew McCabe, and Brian Albert. These people were not part of a conspiracy and certainly did not commit murder or any crime that night. They have been forthcoming with authority, providing statements, and have not engaged in any cover-up. They are not suspects in any crime. They are merely witnesses in the case. To have them accused of murder is outrageous. To have them harassed and intimidated based on false narratives and accusations is wrong. They are witnesses doing what our justice system asks of them. The autopsy of John O'Keefe was conducted by a forensic pathologist from the Office of the Chief Medical. The injuries that left John helpless in the cold were not a result of a fight. She further found that the line of abrasions on his arm was consistent with blunt trauma, not an animal attack. A grand jury of everyday citizens heard the documented evidence and testimony before making a decision. The subject of that murder indictment enjoys the constitutional presumption of innocence. Why should the witnesses,
which by doing this video and making this statement, you are cheating her of? Are you mean to tell me that at this point in time, when you're giving this statement to all the main media outlets, that you still considered Karen Reed innocent until proven guilty? No. No. You've already convicted her, sir. So you are making a false statement right there.
who have committed no crime be afforded less by members of the community. They should not be harassed for telling the government what they heard or saw. I'm asking the Canton community and everyone who feels invested in this case to hear all the actual evidence at trial before assigning guilt to people who have done nothing wrong. And certainly before taking it upon yourself to harass citizens who evidence shows have done nothing in this matter but come forward and bear witness. We try people in the court and not on the internet for a reason. The internet has no rules of evidence. The internet has no punishment for perjury. And the internet does not know all the...
They have no rules of evidence, which your office fails to follow anyway. They have no punishment for perjury, which your office has no punishment for perjury also, because every single one of those House defendants were caught in multiple lies on the stand and nothing ever came of it. So, hello.
Facts. Conspiracy theories are not evidence. The idea that multiple police department, EMTs, fire personnel, the medical examiner, and prosecuting agencies are joined in or taken in by a vast conspiracy should be seen for what it is, completely contrary to the evidence and a desperate attempt to reassign guilt. Michael Proctor, the state police trooper, being accused of planting evidence outside 34 Fairview Road, was never at Fairview Road on the day of the incident.
Did you hear that? The lead detective in this case never went to the crime scene. And he thinks that sounds good.
Proctor and his state police partner traveled together the entire day while other officers were processing 34 Fairview. Trooper Proctor was not there and did not plant evidence at 34 Fairview Road. In addition to having no opportunity to plant the evidence, as has been suggested, Proctor would have no motive to do so. Trooper Proctor had no close personal relationship with any of the parties involved in the investigation and had no conflict. And he had no reason to step out of this investigation. Every suggestion to the contrary is a lie. This should be seen for what it is and not used as a pretext to attack and harass others. What is happening to the witnesses, some with no actual involvement in the case, is wrong. It is contrary to the American values of fairness and the constitutional value of a fair trial. It needs to stop now. I am releasing this recorded statement rather than holding a news conference because my remarks need to be so narrowly tailored to the issue at hand while the prosecution is pending in Superior Court. But the message is the same. What is happening to these innocent people, these witnesses, is wrong and it needs to stop.
And it needs to stop. He included that in her article because that looks so bad. Yeah, he had no reason and no close ties, but we have since found out that those are also lies through his phone extraction. And by the fact that his mother alone refers to the Alberts as their second family. And there are receipts for that. Not knowing what else to do on August 25th for the first time. Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry. Not knowing what else to do, on August 25th, for the first time in his 12 years in office, Morrissey released a nearly 6-minute video statement pushing back on the absolutely baseless claims of conspiracy, condemning the harassment of the witnesses, and disavowing the false narratives. The witnesses, he said, certainly did not commit murder or any other crime that night. And you have now made it into the Boston College or law school's program, Mr. Morrissey, and not for the better. They're using your recorded statement as evidence of what not to do if you are ever the district attorney. So congratulations, Mr. Morrissey. You must be so proud. He's just so dumb, I don't even think he knows to be embarrassed. He just is I don't think he's ever even tried a case, if you can believe that. It didn't help. On September 5th, Carney directed remarks in a YouTube live stream toward Chris Albert, the father of Colin Albert. I go down to your pizza shop and I stand out there for an hour and I yell shit about your son, Carney said. I accuse him of some of the most heinous things possible and I affect business. People don't want to go into your business because of things that I'm saying. A few days later, when Carney texted Yannetti not to worry that he would get in trouble when discussing what could happen if he were ever charged with wiretapping a witness, Yannetti responded, I am concerned they want you badly. They charge you, then a judge prohibits you from having contact with the witnesses, according to Carney's phone extraction. Around the same time, according to a complaint later filed in court by the witnesses, Reed and Turtle Boy became administrators of the Facebook group Justice for Officer John O'Keefe and Karen Reed, Turtle Boy official. The two had complete control over the group, including approving or denying posts, and the group played host to defamatory and harassing posts about the witnesses. According to the complaint, Reed also personally posted in the group multiple times, including sharing confidential information that hadn't yet been released to the public. Meanwhile, Reed continued to direct Carney's coverage of her case. On September 18th, Reed sent pictures of Brian Albert and his wife, Nicole, at their son's football game. Cornered rat Brian Albert continues to fight us getting his fucking call log, she texted, according to Carney's phone extraction. Can you make a post just for this? Carney complied. The Alberts are living constantly on edge and have to hide like cornered rats. Rats being the key word there. Gretchen. Oh, no, sorry. I guess Carney said that. The Alberts are living constantly on edge and have to hide like cornered rats, he wrote in the post. She also directed Carney to monitor multiple witnesses' homes. What we'd love is for someone to do surveillance on Wentworth tonight, she texted Carney the following week. Way to go, Gretchen Voss. Now you're giving away the witnesses' home addresses. Maybe not their address, but the street that they live on. And you call yourself a respectable reporter or journalist. You might want to rethink that title. What we'd love is for someone to do surveillance on Wentworth tonight, she texted Carney the following week in reference to investigator Michael Proctor's house after asking him to run the plates of a car with a Massachusetts State Police sticker on the back, according to Carney's phone extraction. Well, you don't have to depend on Carney's phone extraction to know that he was running that plate, because he came clean. He included that in one of his live streams, because it was Jennifer McCabe's Jeep that was parked outside of Proctor's house. But now you've just confirmed that it was Michael Proctor's house that's on Wentworth. So not only did you give them the street of one of the quote unquote witnesses, but you confirmed that it was the street that ex-Massachusetts State Trooper Michael Proctor lived on. Way to go, Gretchen Voss. Wow. We really need surveillance set up. Please, please don't breathe a word of this, she texted, followed by a request to go to the home of witness Carrie Roberts. Get a pic of that Cow's Explorer, Reed texted. The witnesses were not the only targets. In late September 2023, I wrote a story about the case that raised questions about Reed's account of what happened the night O'Keefe was killed. What kind of horrible excuse for a mother supports cop killers? Someone texted me after the story was published, sending a picture of my sons when they were young, taken from my Facebook page. You dragged them into this. Good job, Miss Voss. My local police department sent extra officers to my son's Friday night football game. Now we're going to make it about me. Poor me. So you have a personal vendetta here, is what you're saying. Right? Why don't you just tell us you have a personal vendetta without telling us you have a personal vendetta? The day my story went live, Reed texted Carney on Signal according to his phone extraction. Call out Gretchen for not confirming that stupid fucking manipulated text from Colin. And did you call her out on missing the lack of a date stamp for January 29th? Within hours, Carney sent me a barrage of texts, followed by blog posts trashing me, eventually putting my non-public phone number on the internet, which people use to send me threatening and vile messages. Carney also publicly accused me of sleeping. Sorry, just a second. Sorry. Carney also publicly accused me of sleeping with the DA's married public relations officer. The accusation was false. Carney kept at it. Over the following months, his blog attacked me repeatedly. In one bracket-style feature he ran on witnesses, court personnel, and journalists, my name appeared alongside allegations that I had failed as a journalist and that I had traded editorial favors for a burger dinner with the DA spokesperson. My phone number circulated in the Turtle Rider community. Strangers sent messages accusing me of being a shill, a whore, a bad mother. I received calls late at night. When I appeared in the courthouse to cover the trial, women I had never met called me disgusting repeatedly. None of it changed what my reporting found, but it did make clear that anyone who asked hard questions about Reed's case could expect to be answered with the same machinery that was coming for the witnesses. The difference was mostly one of degree. We could say the same about anybody that tried to report on the case overall. Aiden Carney. I would say that he's being answered with the same machinery, only more, because he's being brought up on actual charges that could send him to jail for over 100 years if he's found guilty on all charges and convicted to the maximum sentence. So I ask you, who is the machinery going after more? The harassment and the news of the federal investigation that fueled it served. Okay, so you're saying that the federal investigation fueled all this harassment. So why is Turtle Boy the one being charged? Can you answer me that? Just wondering. Asking for a friend. The harassment and the news of the federal investigation that fueled it served a purpose in Reed's defense, casting doubt on the witnesses by making them appear to be the perpetrators of the crime, and casting doubt on the state's investigators by suggesting they were the subjects of a federal probe. No, you cast doubt on yourselves because you were caught in so many incriminating lies on the stand. Proven lies. These are lies that were proven by the defense. If you're not doing anything wrong, you have nothing to lie about. And yet every single one of you motherfuckers got caught in more than one lie while testifying in court. So you are the ones that brought the attention to yourselves as the perpetrators. You and only you. We just emphasized it and brought more attention to it. But you got yourself there. Reed knew it was working. In a signal message to Carney on September 29th, she reveled in the effects of his work. Look at what you've done to their reputation, she wrote, and to my jury pool. As the bus carrying the jurors made its way from an undisclosed location to the courthouse each day in the spring of 2024, the 12 jurors who were supposed to know nothing about the case looked out the windows at a massive banner on Route 1A that read in large red letters, Karen Reed was framed. They passed dozens of protesters. I would say not protesters, they were supporters of Karen Reed. Camped out at Legacy Place along the bus route, wielding posters with slogans like "Way Beyond Reasonable Doubt" and "DA, Stop Lying." Even if they weren't looking, there was no avoiding the sounds of people yelling, free Karen Reed at their best. Though the judge had instituted a 200-foot buffer zone around the courthouse to protect the jurors from the contentious protests, which Carney led on his bullhorn during pretrial hearings, it did nothing to help. Hundreds of women and some men clad in pink merch, Reed's requested color, and it wasn't Reed's requested color, it was her favorite color. Get it right, Gretchen. Lined the streets across from the courthouse and in the adjacent field, shaking pink pom-poms, dancing to music, blasting out of pickup trucks, and walking dogs in Jackson/Yannetti shirts. The jury room on the second floor down the hall from the courtroom overlooked that field, where Reed and her legal team made their entrance and exit every day. We could figure out when Karen Reed was leaving the building and when she was coming back because there were cheers, says one juror in the first trial who requested anonymity to speak about the proceedings. Well, she's not going to remain anonymous because they are going to file to have your notes entered as evidence, and they will find out who this person was. So way to go, Gretchen. When they peeked through the blinds, they could see it all, including at one point a bouncy house and lobster food truck. Wait a minute. You guys ate lobster out there? Really? Bullshit. That's complete bullshit. First of all, that park was roped off. They weren't even allowed to go on the lawn of that park. It was sectioned off. They weren't allowed to go on the lawn at the park. So that's complete bullshit, Gretchen. And if that's what this juror told you, this juror's a liar. And if it's not what they told you and you just embellished the story, then you're a liar. But you might have wanted to check into the credibility of that statement before you went and printed it. That's a big statement to make. Idiot much? Just saying. Including at one point a bouncy house. And I mean, how many adults would play in a bouncy house anyway? So are you saying that people kept their kids out of school to protest? Is that what you're trying to get at? Because that didn't happen. How dare you embellish and lie on behalf of these people, for anybody for that matter. But I find it funny that you're willing to die on this hill because it may be your last hill as an investigative journalist in Boston. Just saying. Your credibility is shot, and with good cause. Wow. Including at one point a bouncy house and lobster food truck. The field transformed into something resembling a circus. Many of them reported it all to the court officers. Nothing was done to stop it. We kept saying, I can't believe they're letting this happen, the juror says. Bullshit. If anybody would have ever come to one of the court officers, meaning Fanning, there's no doubt in my mind they would have ran directly. They would have beelined it to Aunt Canoni, Aunt Bev, and she would have shut it down because she was looking for a reason to shut it down. So that's bullshit. That's a lie. I say call the court officers, put them on the stand. Question them. Were you ever informed that this was going on by any of the jurors? The juror also recounted what another juror had described. His wife had told him that Carney was assigning nicknames to each of the jurors. Just knowing that was really uncomfortable and not cool, the anonymous juror says. Well, Gretchen, I guess you can now be labeled a snitch too, because jurors are not supposed to talk about the case to anyone, not even a fellow juror. Okay. And this juror not only broke the rules by discussing the case with his wife, which is how he knows that Turtle Boy was assigning nicknames, but then he comes back and he discusses it with the other jurors, which he's not supposed to do. Did you report that to the judge? Because I have real issues with that. Those are basic instructions, and you guys have proven that you can't follow them. And Gretchen, you just snitched them out. Way to go. Wow. You just don't give a shit about any of the people that you report on. You just give a shit about getting that story out there, right? It shows. Just knowing that was really uncomfortable and not cool, the anonymous juror says. Once the jurors recognized Carney in the courtroom, she says, they grew nervous he would identify and dox them. He had done so to a juror in a previous case in that same court. Did you find out what case that was, Gretchen? Did you look into it to see if that was true? Or just go on what they say and what they tell you? Are you putting in the work as an investigative journalist, or are you just betting your career on what these people tell you? We felt intimidated, she says, adding that about halfway through the trial, the jurors asked court officers to ask the judge to remove Carney from the courtroom. He was not removed. I call bullshit. Like I said, Judge Aunt Beverly Cannoni was looking for any reason to shut it down and to shut Aiden Carney down, and she would have jumped at that. So you can't convince me that happened. Sorry. Not buying it. I want receipts. I want proof, which is what you should have asked for, Gretchen, Miss Voss. On July 1, 2024, the judge declared a mistrial after the jury said they were deadlocked. The anonymous juror believes Carney had a direct impact on the outcome. If he would be happy to have that kind of influence, I bet, but he doesn't. Sorry. If the conspiracy theory was never created, there's no doubt in my mind that she'd be in jail. No doubt. Agreed. And that's exactly why we brought the conspiracy and the corruption to the forefront, so that she wouldn't be wrongfully convicted. I agree with that statement. I totally agree with that statement. You are 100% right in that, making that statement, which is why the Free Karen Read movement began. Thank you for proving our point. If Karen Read's attorneys were never allowed to argue what they thought was really going on in this case, she would have been convicted. You're right. But luckily, they were able to bring some of that in. Thank you for stating our case for us. The day after the mistrial, Paul O'Keefe emailed U.S. Attorney Levy. I would appreciate the opportunity to meet with you regarding your involvement in the murder case against Karen Read, he wrote. You were kind enough to meet with her and her legal team. Now I think it is time to meet with the family of the actual victim in this case. He never received a reply. He sent another email and another. He left a voicemail. Nothing. The mere fact that they were involved was used in a court to create a cloud of doubt. The mere fact that they were involved was used in court to create a cloud of doubt. The defense used it as a weapon. Rightfully so, says Paul O'Keefe. Nobody would come out and speak and say anything. Well, and they were justified in doing so, because that proves that there is doubt in her guilt. Why wouldn't you want that to come forward? Don't you want all the information surrounding your brother's death to come forward so that everything is known and then you can make an informed decision? Or do you just want to be continue to be misled and gaslit? Because you're making it sound like you'd rather have that. And it's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed for you if that's the case. Just 1 second. Okay, sorry. O'Keefe's family, who filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Reed that August, weren't the only ones who were stonewalled. Helena Rafferty, the Canton chief of police at the time, says she repeatedly reached out to Levy and Deitch, begging them to help. She told them that there was an enormous amount at stake, that if they didn't do something, allowing the intimidation of witnesses to continue would set a precedent, allowing the whole justice system to crumble, she says. They finally agreed to meet in the fall, between Reed's mistrial and the second trial. I had repeatedly reached out to Adam Deitch, like, these people are getting eaten alive. They're your witnesses too. No, they're not. In fact, Brian Albert admitted that they were being treated as the suspects by the U.S. attorney. So they are not considered their witnesses. So why should they feel the need to protect them? They're your witnesses too, Rafferty recalls telling him. When she arrived at the meeting, 9 people were seated around a large table, including Levy and Deitch. I said, I am coming in to beg for help, she says, and opened up a huge portfolio full of abusive letters and emails that had been sent to the witnesses, residents of her town. And I'm crying. I'm saying, help me help these witnesses. This is crazy. She wanted them to speak up, to tell Carney's followers, the FKR diehards, that these witnesses were in fact witnesses and not murderers. Can't do that. Have you ever seen so much of a deal made out of ordinary citizens in your town? I mean, have you ever seen such a stir created by just ordinary citizens? I never have. That's crazy. They have the DA talking for them. They have the judge sticking up for them. They have the police sticking up for them. They have the chief of police sticking up for them. Who are these people? Do they really have that much power over you? That's sad. Because I'm not that impressed with them, to be honest with you. I think they would get eaten alive in my hometown. And yet I don't know of anybody in my hometown that all these people would bend over backwards protecting. And yet I think you'd get eaten up there. Just saying. Levy stepped down in Levy texted her later. They had talked about it for a while after she left, Rafferty says he wrote, and there was really nowhere they could go with it. Sorry, not sorry. Levy stepped down in January 2025 due to the change in presidential administration, and Leah Foley was appointed U.S. Attorney shortly thereafter. Her office contacted Rafferty and other law enforcement figures involved in the case, including Commonwealth Special Prosecutor Hank Brennan, and let them know that the investigation was closed. The case that had run for nearly 2 years, during which time they allowed Reed to stand trial for murder twice without intervention, resulted in no charges against any of the witnesses or against anyone else. They allowed the trial to go on because there's nothing they could do to intervene, but they released over 3,000 pages in support of why you should not go on with this prosecution. And Levy even stated that he could not, with good conscience, let this prosecution continue. So that's why he was turning over the 3,000 pages to both sides. And yet you went on with the prosecution. So don't tell me they didn't intervene. They intervened plenty, as much as they could, without hurting their own ongoing investigation. They couldn't give you everything they have. They have an ongoing investigation. You know, they can't show all their cards. The only conviction from the entire investigation was one of the federal grand jurors themselves, who pleaded guilty to leaking confidential grand jury information. Though Foley told her law enforcement partners that they could announce it and allowed lawyers for Brian Albert and Brian Higgins to state in open court that they were not targets of the investigation, her office never made an official statement. That says volumes. That speaks volumes right there. That left the door open for Reed and her followers to hijack and misrepresent the news. I don't know if I believe that, Reed said with a smile when a reporter asked whether she was encouraged or discouraged by the Fed's decision to stop investigating the case. I have good reason not to, from the horse's mouth. Carney's stated goal of influencing the jury pool. We are trying to affect the jury pool. We are, he shouted at one rally. That's exactly what I'm doing, appeared by his own metric to be succeeding. Jury selection for the state's retrial Reed began on April Fool's Day 2025. Very fitting, I might add. It took 10 days and 590 prospective jurors to find 18 who were deemed fit for the trial. The day the jury was brought back into the courtroom to ask a question amid their deliberations, 2 jurors appeared to look directly at Carney, who was sitting in the media section, and smile. I was in the courtroom that day and saw it. Well, why didn't you say something, Gretchen? Why didn't you report that? Because you're lying. After they delivered their verdict later that day, as they filed out, one of them appeared to look straight at Carney and smile broadly. After the case was over, the jury foreman, who later said he didn't take a single note after the first witness testified, called the witnesses suspects in a post-trial interview, even though the defense was prohibited from mentioning the theory of their involvement in the crime during the trial, because he's not stupid. And the reason why he didn't take notes, he said, if you watched any of his interview with that college, that it only took him to see one witness to know that whatever they were saying was bullshit and he wasn't buying it, so there's no sense in writing it down. That's why he didn't take notes. Not to mention he has a photographic memory, I believe he said. But come on. Tell the whole story if you're going to tell any of it. Don't pick and choose. Don't cherry pick what you're going to put in print, Ms. Voss. Because there are plenty of us that know the whole truth and know what really happened. And we will bring it to light. If you don't want to bring it to light, we will. It's that simple. In addition to the harassment they continue to suffer, the witnesses now face Reed's own lawsuit against them. Oh, I'm sorry. Are they the only ones allowed to sue? Are you fucking kidding me? Alongside the wrongful death suit that O'Keefe's family filed against Reed in 2024, which is still ongoing, Reed has filed her own civil rights suit against witnesses Jennifer and Matthew McCabe, Brian and Nicole Albert, Brian Higgins, and several law enforcement officials, alleging that they concocted a plan, executed that plan, and framed an innocent woman to steer the murder investigation away from themselves. Adam Deitch is still a sitting U.S. attorney, Reed is heard telling Carney in a phone call recorded in the months after her acquittal. She was warning Carney not to tweet about what she called her private conversations with Deitch and the lawyers. She continues, I really don't need federal attorneys knowing that I've leaked stuff to you, and now you're showing it off. I asked to meet Deitch to discuss Reed's statements about him and his role in the federal investigation. He agreed, and we spoke for 3 hours over coffee at a restaurant in Milton. In the months before our meeting, Deitch had sold his East Boston condo, moved to Quincy, and left what he calls his dream job at the U.S. Attorney's Office to run for Norfolk County DA, the office whose handling of the Reed case had been the subject of the federal investigation he led. Again, tell the whole story, Ms. Voss. He was so disgusted with what he saw going on in Norfolk County that he made it his life's mission to try and fix it. So, yes, he quit his dream job and moved to Norfolk County so that he could run for district attorney and turn that shit around. It wasn't a personal vendetta that he was fighting for Karen. It wasn't any of that. He was disgusted with the shit that he came across during his investigation, and he wants it fixed. He's embarrassed that that goes on in his state. And he was willing to give up a good paying job and go unemployed. That's how much conviction he had that he could fix it. Had nothing to do personally with him and a relationship of some sort with Karen Reed. He told me he had heard the recording of Reed, but denied that he ever had private conversations with her. I've never met Karen Reed or communicated with Karen Reed, he said. I did send thank you notes to her and her family after they contributed to my campaign, and I'm proud to have the support of anyone who cares as much as they do about change in the Norfolk County DA's office. Indeed, Reed and her family and her lawyers have donated to Deitch's campaign in each of the past 2 years. Great. What's wrong with that? Why wouldn't they want to invest in somebody that could do Norfolk County good? That's where they live. They want the best for their county, and Morrissey is not it. And anybody in Morrissey's office is not it. At press time, Reed's family had contributed more than just 1 second. Sorry. It never fails. As soon as I hit mute, they stop barking. At press time, Reed's family had contributed more than $5,000, and her legal team at least $9,000. Asked how he can appreciate the support of someone who, on the recording, describes what he insists never happened. He said, "I don't know what she meant when she said that, so I'm going to turn down her contribution." That doesn't make sense. 2 of Reed's cell phones were seized by state authorities in January 2024 as part of an investigation into witness intimidation connected to Carney. The phones remain in the custody of the Norfolk County DA's office while the Commonwealth appeals a March 2026 order to return them to her. And they have missed their 30-day deadline to appeal. So they need to get her phones back to her. They're not appealing. What do you mean while the Commonwealth appeals? They failed to file an appeal in time. They can't appeal now. You make it sound as if they have an ongoing appeal. They don't. On another leaked recording of a call with Carney, Reed said, "Do you have any clue what's on my phones that they took?" She did not specify. If Deitch wins the election, Reed's cell phones will be under his authority. Carney, facing charges of felony witness intimidation, made his own view of a Deitch with the If Deitch wins the election, Reed's cell phones will be under his authority. Carney, facing charges of felony witness intimidation, made his own view of a Deitch when explicit. In a live stream in November, just days after Deitch announced his campaign, Carney said, "I have no doubt if he was elected district attorney, I think my problems would go away. I would hope so." Yeah, because Deitch is done with the bullshit. He sees right through what's going on. Why wouldn't he fix it and do what's right? He could either do that or bring everybody else up on witness intimidation who deserves to be brought up on witness intimidation. Would you rather that? Because then a lot of your little friends would be indicted. Chris Albert would be indicted on wiretapping because he has a microphone on the outside of his pizza parlor or his pizza shop. He has his camera is wired for sound. So he's been wiretapping anybody that sits on that bench outside his pizza shop for Lord knows how long, listening to their conversations. So you really want to go down that road? Or do you want to just hope that he would drop Aiden Carney's charges? Are you really that dumb? Because if he brings Aiden Carney, if he continues to follow through with Aiden Carney's charges, then he has to then in turn charge anybody else who's breaking the law with the law that they're breaking. And that would be Chris Albert. That would be Jill Daniels for the assault on Aiden Carney. I mean, there's so many things. So many of those people would be arrested. Do you understand that? So they would benefit by Carney's charges being dropped also. Just saying. So there's that. I put Reed's statements on the recording to Deitch. I'm not going to comment on specific allegations or cases without seeing the evidence, he told me. Very good. Saying that he has never communicated with or met Carney. If I have a conflict of interest in a particular case, then I will not be involved in the decision-making of that case. And though he says the Norfolk County DA's office has been rife with conflicts, he declined to comment on any of his own. She's trying to hurt his chances of being elected DA. That's what she's doing. She's trying to impede his success of becoming Norfolk County District Attorney. That's exactly what she's doing. For instance, the chairman of his campaign committee, Michael Loans, is married to a fellow assistant U.S. attorney, Ann Peruti, who has co-prosecuted cases with Deitch and whom Deitch says is a close friend. So what? A lot of my coworkers are my close friends because I spend more time with them than anybody else. What, you're not allowed to be close friends with coworkers and their families or their spouses? What are you trying to say here? I'm not picking up what you're putting down. It's very poor evidence of anything. You could do better. Peruti was also the prosecutor for the federal grand juror who leaked confidential information in the Reed case. She requested a higher sentence than the judge ultimately issued. Though Deitch declined to discuss it, talk of an apparent connection and conflict of interest has been circulating online. Peruti and Reed went to high school together and were both in the Spanish Honor Society, according to a yearbook photo. Wow, really? And were recently, until it was revealed on social media, Pinterest friends. Are you fucking kidding me? This is all you have, Gretchen? This is the aha moment that you're looking for? Really? Really? I'm disappointed. I expected more from you. I really did. You're not the journalist I thought you were. or the investigative journalist that I thought you were. I gave you too much credit. Reed reportedly went to the wedding of Anne's sister, Trisha, who was also in the Spanish Honor Society with them. Never mind. When asked whether he would reopen the investigation into O'Keefe's death, as he has alluded to on the campaign trail, Deitch said, "I believe the O'Keefe family has been fed a one-sided set of facts." Although he speaks about the O'Keefes often while campaigning, he first contacted the family, according to Paul O'Keefe, only after Paul emailed him with several reporters CC'd, including this one. Well, you said that Paul stated to you earlier in this article that they never responded to Paul O'Keefe's emails. Isn't that what you said, Paul O'Keefe said? They never responded, and now you're saying that they did finally answer? Which is it? Does that mean he believes the family is wrong that Reed is responsible for O'Keefe's death? If you look at the evidence that has been made public, he said carefully, "What's clear to me is that the charges did not match the evidence." So I think he's saying, yeah, they're wrong for believing that she was responsible for his death. I think you can say that. Deitch highlights his work leading the federal investigation in his campaign, but says he cannot discuss its details. The investigation closed in early 2025 without charges. What it produced publicly was the text messages found on the personal cell phone of MSP trooper Michael Proctor, the lead investigator on the O'Keefe case. Messages so racist and misogynistic, they led to Proctor's dismissal and later the revocation of his law enforcement certification. Deitch has appeared on the YouTube program of Emily C., a free Karen Reed podcaster whose past segments have included mockery of John O'Keefe's mother and of the children of the witnesses. Deitch told me he was open to appearing on podcasts across the political spectrum to reach the widest possible audience. I can tell you that Emily C. never mocked anybody. She's the sweetest, most pure person you will ever see on YouTube. There's no way she ever mocked anybody on one of her live feeds. I just don't believe it. And until you show me proof, I refuse to even consider that fact. A few weeks after, do you have any of you showed Morrissey's video up here. Do you have any video evidence to prove what you're saying about Emily C. mocking these people? Because you included his video. Why can't you include hers? You know why? Because there are none. You have no video evidence to prove that. And yet you're putting it in here as fact. That's very irresponsible of you as a journalist, Miss Voss. You'll be lucky to get out of this without a lawsuit, as far as I'm concerned. A few weeks after our interview, Deitch declined an invitation to appear on a show called The Forensic Room, hosted by supporters of the witnesses and the O'Keefe family. Instead, Reed and her father, Bill, attended the grand opening of Deitch's new Quincy campaign headquarters. Well, you say instead, like they took place on the same night, did they? Was the opening of his new campaign headquarters the same night as the Forensic Room wanted them to be on their show? Because otherwise, what would Karen Reed and her dad being at the grand opening have anything to do with him not being on the Forensic Room? You're just trying to make a connection, and there isn't one. His campaign to run for the office, Morrissey says, certainly provides plausible motive for misconduct in the investigation he led as an assistant U.S. attorney. Wow. You have some nerve, Morrissey. 5 minutes down the road from the Norfolk County DA's office, more than 400 supporters of the witnesses in John O'Keefe's murder investigation gathered on a March evening to raise money to defend themselves against Reed's lawsuit. Long tables flanking the ballroom were loaded with merch for sale. There was a silent auction featuring donated Red Sox tickets and Loon Mountain getaways, designer upholstered throw pillows. Designer upholstered throw pillows, starting at a value of more than $600, had been donated by Natalie Wywicki, the German, the former Reed Carney intermediary who flew in from California to show her support that night. Inside, the crowd, which had grown too large for the dozens of round tables draped in white cloth, rose for a standing ovation for Peg O'Keefe, who was there with her son Paul to support the witnesses, to support the witnesses, period. Where was the dad? Brian Albert, too, was met with thunderous applause as he took to the microphone. This three-pronged attack was executed with military precision. It consisted of a vicious and unscrupulous defense team, an army of social media lunatics. Okay, I take that personally. And a highly unusual and unprecedented federal investigation, all coalescing, in my opinion, for the common goal of influencing the outcome of this case, he said. You know what sounds more ridiculous than having multiple police departments and first responders and witnesses and whatnot conspire, all coming together to conspire against Karen Read? You know what's more ridiculous than that? To think that all these people conspired against you. Because there's more people in this situation that you're describing. So if it's possible to happen in your eyes for them to do to you, why can't it be possible to happen for you to do to Karen? You guys live and die. You guys use things as a shield and a sword, and I'm so over it. I'm just so over it. The double standard in Canton is heavy. This system, he said, failed them at every turn. They allowed us to be lambs for the slaughter. It's the worst thing I've ever experienced, and that's saying a lot because I've seen a lot. I've seen the worst humanity has to offer. The money they raised that evening would go to defend against Reed's civil lawsuit against them and to fund a lawsuit of their own. One month after the event, on April 16th, Chris Mattei, the lawyer for the Sandy Hook families who won a $1.4 billion defamation award against Alex Jones for claiming the shooting was a hoax, filed a lawsuit on behalf of Jennifer McCabe, Brian Albert, Colin Albert, and Brian Higgins against Reed and Carney for defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and civil conspiracy, among other counts. This case arises from a multi-year conspiracy orchestrated by Karen Read and Aidan Carney to subvert and prejudice the criminal justice process in Norfolk County, Massachusetts. The complaint states, Reed knowingly destroyed the reputations and lives of innocent people to deflect attention away from her own culpability. It alleges, and Carney received his information exclusively from Reed and her legal team, made no independent journalistic effort to verify the accuracy of the murder accusations before publishing them, repeatedly ignored or dismissed evidence contradicting his narrative. Okay, he didn't make any journalistic efforts. What about Lucky Loughran? What about the Ford Edge that was parked out in front of the house? What about speaking to the city, the head of the city, to find out that Proctor lied about the sweeps not running that night? What about, there's so much. It's like, what about you, Gretchen? I mean, that can be said about you, that you as an independent journalist have made no effort to verify the accuracy of any of what you're printing in this article. So you have a hell of a nerve writing that about Aidan Carney, because you in this article have written more falsities than Aidan Carney did through the whole campaign. I don't think he wrote one, if any, false facts. But in this one article, you have listed quite a few that I think you're going to have to answer to. I hope you're ready. Mattei says that the lawsuit put it best. This operation to assassinate the character of innocent witnesses has caused incalculable harm, subjecting them to a daily tidal wave of hatred, harassment, and intimidation, he says. While the damage to them has been catastrophic, Reed's and Carney's lies, which were amplified by a vigorous public relations campaign, have also poisoned the community's cohesion, tainted the criminal prosecution of Reed, and deprived the O'Keefe family of the Commonwealth of the justice they deserve. You did that. The should have been suspects did that. On his live streams since the lawsuit was filed, Carney has called Mattei retarded and said Mattei would be his play toy for the next few years. He said he would destroy Mattei's reputation. Now's when we double down, motherfucker, he said. I have an army of people behind me. The witnesses had stayed mostly quiet through the investigation, both trials and years of harassment. Okay. At the fundraiser that night, McCabe stood before the crowd of 200 and spoke. 400 and spoke. We trusted the process. We trusted the system. We believed if we told the truth and endured that would be enough, she said. We were quiet when quiet was right. This time we're not whispering. No, you trusted in the fact that Morrissey would go down for you. You entrusted the fact that Proctor would go down for you, which she did. You just put too much trust into the people that were that you thought would protect you at their own, as their own careers perished. That's what you thought. You thought you had that kind of hold over these people that they would actually go down for you. And I think you found out that not all of them would. Close to it, though. Update. This story has been updated to accurately reflect that Aidan Carney's phone extraction became public via his now former girlfriend. You said that already. The story has also been updated to remove any ambiguity about the context of a message from defense attorney David Yannetti to Carney. When Yannetti wrote, "These bastards deserve all the scorn we are giving them," he was referring to the Massachusetts State Police. Oh, she redacted it. A version of this story appears in the August 2026 print issue of Boston with the headline, "Read Between the Lines." Wow. Yeah, Yannetti wasn't happy when he read that because that was in her original story, her original article. She included that in the original article, the quote about David Yannetti texting Carney, "These bastards deserve all the scorn we are giving them," because she made it sound like he was talking about the should have been suspects / Hos Defendants, and he wasn't. He was talking about the MSP, and he was not happy that she put that in the article and what it was insinuating, and he threatened her, and she followed through with the redaction. Good for him. What a piece of shit you are, Gretchen. You truly are. Be careful what you want for. That's all I can say. You want the attention, you've gotten it. And I think it's funny that you didn't even try to argue your truth with David Yannetti, which tells me that you have no idea what's true. You just took everything at face value that they were giving you and printed it. And now you're going to suffer the consequences. It's going to be interesting to see how many redactions you make. In fact, I'm going to copy that and keep it. And every day I'm going to check the Boston Globe and I'm going to copy that article to see if there's any changes made. Because there's a big change made from yesterday to today. Too bad I don't have yesterday's article, but you know who does? Melanie Little. And that redaction at the end was not there. And the quote of Yanetti's text to Aiden was there. So there's that. So good luck with that, Miss Voss. I hope you're happy with yourself. Let's see if these people come to your defense when it's time for you to stand up for yourself and defend your actions. Because I can guarantee you they won't. They got what they wanted out of you. Now you're of no use to them. They don't care what happens to you. Remember that. So anyway, that's all that I have. And I just want to remind you, don't forget to like and subscribe. It's free. It helps get my channel on the algorithm. I appreciate every one of you that watches my videos. And yeah, just remember that tomorrow is the first day of the rest of your life. And ciao for now.